To Ukraine now. At least 22 people are known to have been killed in a Russian missile strike on an apartment block in the central Ukrainian city of Dnipro. Dozens of others were injured when part of the nine-storey building was reduced to rubble. Rescue workers are still searching for people buried there after working through the night. It follows a wave of new strikes targeting Ukraine's power infrastructure. James Waterhouse has more.
In the grand scheme of this war, there had been a relative reprieve from Russia's long-range missile and drone strikes. 2 weeks. New Year's Day was the last time we saw it happen. But we knew this one was significant just from the amount of time we had to spend in the shelter. We were down for a few hours, and as ever, you resurface to images of where the devastation has been most acute. Saturday was about Dnipro, where we saw a residential block completely destroyed by a missile strike. Rescue teams are continuing to sift through smoking rubble and twisted metal. There are people calling out for help, using lights on their phones to let rescue teams know where they are. More than 20 people have now lost their lives, we're told. Many more are missing. And this just shows that while Russia is continuing its tactic of trying to hit infrastructure sites, so places like power stations, to deprive people of energy in the middle of winter, it is civilians, normal people, who find themselves in harm's way. This was an attack that struck targets right across Ukraine. Around 60 missiles, we're told, were launched, as well as rockets from mobile launchers. The air defence systems took some out, but not all. And it shows that the defences are far from watertight, which is why President Zelensky is continuing to call for more on that front in terms of air defences as well as more weapons themselves. And he's also condemned the attacks. And in a hint at how far he is from any kind of peace deal or wanting to negotiate, he said the only way to deal with Russia in this regard is on the battlefield.
Thanks to James for that. Well, we're going to look now at the UK's support for Ukraine. Speaking on BBC Breakfast this morning, the chair of the Defence Select Committee, Tobias Ellwood MP, said the government was focusing too heavily on issues like equipment rather than considering a strategy for Ukrainian success.
We can't continue just gifting different variants of equipment across Europe, supply chains, repairs and parts. It's simply not sustainable. In my view, we should be developing a Ukrainian arms factory, an assembly line in eastern Poland, so it can procure its own military kit and munitions for the long term. That would be a strategic objective that we could all agree in.
Well, that was Tobias Ellwood. We don't know how much he has the ear of the British Prime Minister, but Rishi Sunak has promised what he called a gear change in the country's support for Ukraine. In a government statement, the UK confirmed it will be the first country to send Western tanks to Ukraine, 14 of the Challenger 2 models to be precise. To find out, Europe regional editor Paul Moss.
It confirms that Britain will be sending the Challenger tanks, 14 of them, not the dozen that was first thought of. It also says we'll be sending self-propelled artillery. But I think it's the reasoning behind this that's more interesting than the statement itself, which in a sense was expected. This suggestion you mentioned of a gear change. What the statement says is Russia is on the back foot, suffering from low morale and resupply issues. And what it argues is this is a window of opportunity to really make a difference and to push Russia back. And it explicitly calls on allies, Britain's allies, to do more and to do it now. And interestingly, the statement asserts quite a leading role for Britain and its Prime Minister. It says the Prime Minister will seek to demonstrate the UK's power as an international catalyst with influence across NATO, the G7 and elsewhere. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, says he's going to send his Foreign Secretary to the United States and to Canada to coordinate support, and the Defence Secretary to Germany and Estonia, really making it clear he wants Britain to have a central role.
And do you think other countries will listen to Rishi Sunak?
In a sense, it doesn't matter too much whether they agree with the reasoning, for the simple fact that the United States, France, Germany, none of them wanted to be the first to send tanks to Ukraine. They've sent these heavily armoured infantry vehicles, but it's not the same thing. The Czech Republic said it would send tanks, but these are old Soviet-era ones. So everyone was waiting to see who would go first. Britain has now stuck its head above the parapet and said it will send tanks to Ukraine. And for whatever the reason, whether they believe in this window of opportunity or not, that could prompt one of the other Western allies, to do exactly the same. And let's be honest, Britain's 14 tanks are not going to make a huge difference on the battlefield. What Ukraine was always hoping that where one led, the others would follow. We heard this morning the chair of the Ukrainian Foreign Affairs Committee saying they need 300 tanks. One point of caution, the company that makes Germany's Leopard tanks this morning said that they can't make them very quickly and refurbish old ones. It could take until next year to do so, even if the order was given.
Well, despite that, why do you think Britain has made this announcement now?
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think there are, you could take the statement at face value and say that the British government really does believe in this window of opportunity to push Russia back. This is the moment for Britain and the other countries to send troops and to send equipment, and to send equipment now. There is a more cynical reading of that statement. There's politics going on here. Rishi Sunak, as some will know, is often compared unfavourably to Boris Johnson, who was seen this big global figure. He made a much publicised visit to Ukraine, was seen embracing Mr. Zelensky. Boris Johnson's recently announced he's going to go back to Ukraine, even though he's no longer the Prime Minister. Some might feel that Rishi Sunak wants to say, look, I too can be a global leader. I can cut a dash on the international stage. I think I'm going to leave it to the viewers to decide which of those they think is the case.